Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of Velodyne Lidar Live, where we talk to experts from every area of the mobility sector about the latest advancements in technology and all the ways this industry is transforming our lives and our communities in real time. I'm Pamela Gauchi, your host for the next 45 minutes or so, and joining me is my co-host, Mary, who is running slides in the background. And we're really excited to bring you a unique episode today featuring Atul Acharya from GoMentum Station. GoMentum sits at the center of cutting-edge transportation research as the nation's largest dedicated secure testing facility for connected and automated vehicle technology. But before we begin, let's take a quick look at our agenda so you know what to expect today. We'll start off with a very brief overview on Velodyne Lidar, specifically looking at Velodyne's own research and testing at GoMentum. And then we'll move right into our interview with Atul for about 35 minutes or so. And I'll save the last few minutes for audience Q&A, so be sure to use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen to ask questions anytime during our episode. As always, we are recording today's episode, which will be available to watch on Velodyne Lidar's YouTube channel. So let's begin. Undoubtedly, you're already familiar with Velodyne's hardware. Of course, I'm talking about our solid state and rotational LiDAR sensors, some of which you see right here. And we're highlighting two of those sensors, the Veloray H800 and the UltraPuck, because both of these sensors have spent a lot of the past year on the closed courses of GoMentum Station. But Velodyne's testing at GoMentum isn't just about our sensors. It's also about our software, namely Vela, our breakthrough software solution. We believe Vela can revolutionize advanced driver assistance functionalities currently on the market, like lane keeping assist, automatic emergency braking, and adaptive cruise control. In fact, proprietary testing has shown that our LiDAR-based pedestrian automated emergency braking, or PAEB, system outperforms traditional camera and radar-based systems in nighttime conditions. And in this next video clip, you see footage of Velodyne putting our hardware and software through its paces at GoMentum, where we performed most of our PAEB testing. And a closed testing facility like GoMentum is perfect for this because it's not on public roads, but it allows us to simulate public road scenarios with test dummies and other equipment. And those test dummies are critical because pedestrian safety is our highest priority. And a key thing to note, it also allows us to replicate standardized testing in a repeatable pattern. In other words, we can verify all of the conditions in each test are exactly the same every single time we perform it. And next you'll see some photos of us testing at GoMentum, and you'll notice that one of those photos is taken as the sun's going down. And that is critical because testing at night, which we do a lot, is critical when it comes to PAEB. We want to make sure we can detect and classify things like pedestrians and bicyclists even in the dark, which is something that LiDAR really excels at. And of course, the GoMentum team works closely with us on things like setting up test equipment, which can be a pretty complex process. And one of the key members of the GoMentum team is here with us today to talk about this amazing world-class facility. So now I'd like to welcome Atul Acharya, Autonomous Vehicle Strategy and Operations Director, AV Safety, Testing, and Research Lead at GoMentum Station. Welcome, Atul.
Thank you for inviting me, Pamela.
So Atul, I'm going to jump right in here. Can you start by telling everybody, what exactly is GoMentum Station?
Sure. So GoMentum Station is a private and a secure 2,000-acre proving ground for testing connected and autonomous vehicles located in Concord, California, just about 35 miles from San Francisco and around 50 from South Bay area. GoMentum is one of the largest AV testing grounds with various environments for repeatable and automated vehicle testing. Various teams such as systems validation teams from OEMs and AV tech startups, both from Bay Area and beyond, really, come to GoMentum and use this facility as an integral part of their development and deployment process. to validate their simulator results, to perform safety operator training, or execute NCAP scenarios and edge cases without risk to the public. GoMentum has 8 distinct testing zones that allow AV companies to validate their vehicle and AV stacks in different environments and real-world scenarios, such as various roadways, features like railroads and city blocks and construction zones and tunnels. And infrastructure includes features such as programmable traffic lights with DSRC, differential GPS with RTK corrections throughout the site, around 50 intersections and roundabouts and bike lanes. Most recently, we have a V2X lab that's open for traffic engineers to test their systems. GoMentum, we offer a wide range of services that include custom scenario development from structured scenario testing for AV and ADAS, including equipment rental, test plan development, engineering support. GoMentum is operated by AAA of Northern California, Nevada, and Utah, and it really is AAA's ongoing commitment to road and transportation safety by enabling safe development and deployment of highly automated vehicles.
Great. And so GoMentum Station and AAA have a heavy focus on pedestrian and VRU safety. Can you talk about why pedestrian and VRU safety in particular is so important?
That's right. So pedestrian and VRU safety, VRU's vulnerable road user safety is really important because let me set the context briefly. So in the last decade, right, in the last decade or so, pedestrian fatalities have increased by over 50% compared to the previous decades. That is quite alarming given that vehicles have become smarter. Every year, roughly around 6,000 fatalities are accounted for pedestrians, which constitute roughly 17% of total fatalities. Most alarmingly, though, nearly 80% of these fatalities are in nighttime conditions where the conditions of low visibility prevail. Nighttime conditions are typically between 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. Now, the key thing is that most of these fatalities are preventable. Auto OEMs have introduced features like automatic emergency brakes and now pedestrian automatic emergency brakes to prevent collisions. But as I will show very briefly, Pamela, if you could just cue in the next slide, please. So if you're wondering how these AEB systems are tested, currently there are protocols that from Euro NCAP as well as IIHS that perform various kinds of tests. And these tests involve the vehicles being tested with pedestrian dummies of various kinds, whether adult or child or bicyclist, running laterally or longitudinally. And these are designed to elicit behavior from vehicles to see whether they have detected pedestrians at various stopping distances. And really, these are evaluated against detection, time to collision, deceleration profile, etc. Now, the important thing to remember is that most of these tests are performed during daytimes. Many of these protocols are being updated to include nighttime, but these are relatively recent. If you queue up the next one, please. You will see that the IIHS protocols also require testing both lateral and longitudinal for pedestrians and for VRU safety testing. Again, the key thing to see here is that most of these tests are performed during daytimes when the ambient lighting conditions are around 2000 lux and not really at nighttime. Now, the thing is that, as I was mentioning, most of these fatalities that we see occur are during nighttime. So there is clearly some sort of a disconnect here. Now, the thing is, as a result of this, vehicle manufacturers have brought out these functionalities, PAEB. If you're wondering how these systems have performed, if you queue up the next one, please. You will see that AAA itself has performed various research projects that show that pedestrian systems, pedestrian detection systems themselves need a lot of work. One, they have performed inconsistently in the past. They are challenged by real-world situations, such as pedestrians on right turns or suddenly revealed pedestrians. But most alarmingly, most of these systems do not perform well at night. Now, that is an alarming factor, and AAA does conduct research projects such as these, mainly in the interest of public education, to educate the consumers on both the benefits as well as really the limitations of these systems. One of the other projects, if you show the next slide, please, it also involves ADAS evaluation that was performed both at GoMentum and outside, where we evaluated lane keep assist and traffic jam pilot ADAS functionalities. While most of these have performed well, there have been some inconsistencies in their performance as well. And this really, again, is important both in its mission for public education, as well as in the end customers really understanding the limitations of these functions. Now, if you're wondering how vehicles have performed at GoMentum, we have a little video to show you, see how the vehicles are performed here. What we will see is Velodyne's own vehicle being tested in one of these most challenging scenarios. The vehicle is approaching from the right at a high speed, and we see a child pedestrian that is darting from behind two parked vehicles. Now, this is called either the occluded pedestrian or the suddenly revealed pedestrian scenario. And this is really one of the most challenging scenarios for vehicles, mainly because of the size of the dummy. The dummy is a rather small object, so detection does not always work. But as you can see in this case, the vehicle that is equipped with ultra-puck and well-array devices has performed perfectly in this case. That is excellent. We have also executed these scenarios for during nighttime conditions and for various other situations. And really, with the benefit of our experience, we are able to see how different vehicles have performed on these same scenarios. If you show the next slide, I'll give an example of how we have evaluated various different vehicles. What we see here is a chart that shows the vehicle performance on this pedestrian crossing scenario. On the x-axis is the distance to pedestrian potential collision. At the 0 point is a potential collision with the pedestrian dummy. On the y-axis is the speed of these vehicles going roughly from 35 to 45 kilometers an hour. And what we see really is an interesting result. Most vehicles fall in three buckets. The first bucket is the green zone, where the vehicles have come to a safe stop, have stopped roughly anywhere from 5 to 8 meters ahead of the pedestrian dummy. The second bucket is the orange zone, where the vehicles may have detected, but they have come to a very close stop to the pedestrian. And the third bucket is really results where the vehicles have resulted in potential collisions, either direct or potential collisions. Now, the important thing to remember is that the vehicles, we subject these vehicles to these scenarios at GoMentum during all times, both day and night, and in different weather conditions. Now, we are able to provide, to come up with results like these because we have performed various analyses on different kinds of vehicles with different types of pedestrians and different situations. And we are able to analyze how vehicles perform. And really, the key thing to remember here is that in many cases, further evaluation and further testing is necessary. And these are the kinds of testing and evaluations that we perform at GoMentum in partnership with our customers.
So, Atul, you've described GoMentum Station as a quote-unquote comprehensive ecosystem versus being a test track. What do you mean by that? And can you describe some more about the features of GoMentum Station?
That's right. So GoMentum, it really is a comprehensive ecosystem in the sense that we bring together both AV tech companies as well as various partners, but really we also work closely with transportation authorities. We work very closely with CCTA, the Contra Costa Transportation, other public agencies who come to GoMentum to perform their own testing and evaluations, as well as with various other private companies. So these are AV tech companies and technology companies. So essentially, companies come together for their own safety evaluation as well as for their business development connections at GoMentum. So it really is a public-private engagement zone where agencies from everywhere come in together and really share in their technical expertise as well as exchange of business.
So you've touched on this. I'm wondering if you can dig a little bit deeper on giving us a sense of who exactly is using GoMentum Station. Who are your partners and what kinds of projects are happening there?
Sure. So in terms of partners and our customers, today we're fortunate to be based here in the Bay Area, where we have a lot of AV companies. So we count as our customers full stack AV companies. These are all the big names that you have heard of. So they come to GoMentum for their own testing. Secondly, we have a lot of technology leaders such as Velodyne and various other companies as well, whether these are component makers or subsystem manufacturers such as perception system manufacturers, as well as R&D labs from various automotive companies worldwide who have their branches located here in the Bay Area. And then going beyond that, we not only have customers from the Bay Area, but also from outside. So we have customers coming from really from nationwide who want to test their vehicles at GoMentum, who are looking for deployment in California as well.
Yeah, and so GoMentum Station, you offer the facility itself, but you mentioned earlier you offer other services. So you do things like test plan development, engineering support, results analysis. Can you talk about that process of working closely with companies after they initially reach out to you? What does that look like, and how closely is your team interacting with them?
That's right. So we meet the customers where they are. So there are many customers. So we have two different engagement models across the spectrum. The first set is essentially customers who come to GoMentum, use the various testing zones and features, and they tend to work on a self-serve basis. So they use various zones for their own testing. They do perform their testing and they go back. So that's the first one end of the spectrum. At the other end, we offer full consultative engagements with our customers. Many of them are either based in Bay Area or they're from outside, and they are not necessarily fully up to date on the testing protocols. So we help develop the test plan for them. We execute structured scenario testing for them using our high precision equipment in various testing zones. We instrument the vehicles, we capture third-party data independently, we analyze these results, and then we inform the customers on the vehicle's performance on various structured scenarios. We give them a technical report. So it's essentially a full soup to nuts. So we have customers across the spectrum going from self-serve to a fully consultative model.
And we've both touched on safety already a little bit, because safety is really the name of the game for industry leaders like Velodyne and organizations like AAA and GoMentum. Can you talk a little bit about safety standards for testing AV tech? Where are we today, and where do you think we need to go in the future?
That's right, and that's a very important question. Thanks, Pamela. And so let me offer a very quick and a brief perspective on safety regulations. Now, the thing is that regulations have been incoming for various highly automated vehicles. UNECE, most notably, UNECE has already adopted various safety regulations for low level of autonomy, so level 0 through level 2 as general safety regulations. But most notably, the very first regulation binding agreement for highly automated functionality for automatic lane keep system was adopted and has become effective starting this year across the European zone. You also see safety regulations being adopted in Japan, in Germany, in China, and elsewhere. And my perspective is that many of these regulations are coming to the US. US, of course, has self-certification as well. But notably, various agencies from the DOT are taking a look at promoting safe adoption of highly automated vehicles. So these regulations are are incoming here to the US as well. So AV companies that are selling not just nationwide, but also globally have to be in the know of these regulations that apply to them. And I've given one example here. There is, of course, Euro NCAP that has a roadmap for 2025 for highly automated vehicles. But at the same time, there are various safety standards such as UL 4600 that focus on solely on fully autonomous vehicles that have been adopted as a standard, but are going to become more and more important. So UL 4600 talks about a safety case for the entire system as such, which is essentially a claim and evidence-based argument, structured argument that shows regulatory agencies how the vehicle is safe and in which cases the vehicle is safe, right? So these standards are becoming more and more important. So the perspective that I'm offering is that these regulations are coming and these standards are coming. So the AV companies are looking to focus more and more on both the regulations as well as these new safety standards.
Great. And we want to mention that you were recently invited to be part of the World Economic Forum Safe Drive Initiative, or
What's
Safety.
Hey, how's it going? You're fully vaccinated, right?
Sorry about that. We wanted to mention you were recently invited to be part of the World Economic Forum Safe Drive Initiative, or Safety. Can you tell us about that initiative?
That's right. So we are very fortunate to have been invited by the World Economic Forum to participate in their Safe Drive initiative. And it is one of the most unique initiatives that has come across, because it really seeks to bridge the gap between industry's AV expertise and the regulators' desire for safe AV deployment. What it does, it brings together multiple stakeholders to address a governance gap that exists today for highly automated vehicles, so level 3 and above. And the aim of the Safe Drive initiative is to help regulators and policymakers understand how to effectively evaluate AV safety across different use cases. So whether these are low-speed shuttles or whether these are high-speed trucks and different segments, right? So it aims to educate policymakers on evaluation of safety, as well as it develops a framework for a safe deployment of these vehicles. And it really seeks to strike a balance between ensuring safety for all, while not making unreasonable demands on the AV providers. And the way it really does that is by essentially evaluating the safety of these AVs using a tried and tested scenario-based assessment methodology. These vehicles are evaluated across a 4-step graduated process in its own context, which is its own operational design domain. And this 4-step process is really across various different testing modes. So both everything around simulation, closed course testing, as well as public road testing, right? And it includes the key component of this is what is called a safety pool, which really is a large scenario database that is contributed by industry expertise, as well as academic expertise, as well as policymakers who have contributed to this scenario database. It is essentially an incentive-based scenario exchange mechanism for evaluating the safety of highly automated vehicles. But going beyond that, the initiative does not really create any new safety standards. It leverages all the existing safety standards, and including UL 4600 and SOTIF and others. And essentially, it focuses on a common set of metrics. Now, the thing is, by working on a common set of metrics, which is a common set of common understanding within the industry and amongst the various participants, by using existing methodologies, it really does not pose a burden on the AV providers for enabling their vehicles to be evaluated, right? And essentially, it is a guidance framework. It's not a legal requirement. It's a guidance framework for policymakers who are looking to deploy vehicles. Now you see various pilots and projects being deployed globally for highly automated vehicles, whether these are low-speed shuttles or first mile transit solutions and others, right? So this framework enables sharing of learnings across jurisdictions and use cases. And so I'm really excited about this initiative because it really is one of the first one that I've seen that is one global in nature, and one that we are participating in both from a technical perspective as well as from a strategic perspective. So we are helping shape the agenda for this as well. So I'm really looking forward to this. There is a pilot project that is being deployed in Dubai later in the summer. So we're really excited to see how that goes. But essentially, this is a unique initiative, and we are happy to be contributing to this.
Great. So, and clearly GoMentum Station allows technology leaders to test, but also then to engage meaningfully with other industry leaders and public agencies. And that includes the US Department of Transportation. So can you talk a little bit about your relationship with the DOT and how they support you?
That's right. So we are fortunate to be participating in two USDOT grants, along with the CCTA. Essentially, these grants are Mobility on Demand and the ADS grant. The main intent behind these grants is for various cities and have come up with their own pilot programs to see how highly automated vehicles can be deployed in their jurisdictions to solve transportation and congestion issues and mobility issues. Now, the main aim of the MOD grant, which is Mobility on Demand grant, is to see whether AVs can solve some of these highly important questions. As part of these grants, we have two shuttles. These are level 4 shuttles, nominally level 4 shuttles, used for first mile and last mile solutions for transit hubs. These will be deployed in retirement communities and business parks as transportation solutions and mobility solutions for the general public. And our work really is on evaluating the safety of these vehicles, as well as demonstrating the autonomy capabilities of these vehicles. So as part of these, we perform structured scenario testing for these vehicles at GoMentum stations. We replicate the routes that will be on which these vehicles will be deployed. We replicate the scenarios such as the pedestrian and VRU safety scenarios. We evaluate how these vehicles perform. We capture all the data and we share the data with DOT as well as with the vehicle manufacturer, and then we essentially help figure out how the vehicles have performed and how and when they are ready to be deployed. So we are happy to be participating in this. We are very fortunate to be selected for this. If you're wondering how we evaluate these vehicles, if you show the next slide, Mary. We essentially look at the behavioral competencies of these vehicles. These vehicles are evaluated on three different types, essentially, of categories. One is the vehicle itself, performing different kinds of maneuvers, whether it's lane changing or crossing the railroads and all that. The second category is interaction with vehicles. Right, so navigating various kinds of intersections with various different vehicles, stationary or moving. And the third category is essentially interaction with vulnerable road users, so pedestrians and bicyclists in various different situations. So with these three different categories, we evaluate the performance of these vehicles. We capture the results, we analyze them, and then essentially share this data, and then share the report back, and essentially help figure out how the vehicles have performed and whether or not they are ready to be deployed.
And so, Atul, you have then a really unique perspective of watching the public and the private sectors coming together in development and testing of this new technology. How do you think this mixing of public and private sectors can help the development of the industry as a whole?
Thanks, Pamela. That's a very important and an interesting question. And honestly, GoMentum itself sits at the intersection of private and public interaction. GoMentum is of course in the city of Concord. We work fairly closely with CCTA, the public agency. We also work with various private companies, whether these are full stack AV companies or technology leaders, right? So we bring them together at GoMentum as an ecosystem. We help evaluate vehicles both as a system as well as different subsystems, right? These agencies come to us, both private and public agencies come to us for both safety evaluation as well as for performing their own evaluations. As part of our V2X lab, which is a new offering, we have various programmable traffic intersections where traffic engineers come and evaluate the interop of various different traffic technologies. So that is another engagement that we work with. So net, we have both private and public agencies who come to GoMentum. We facilitate business discussions between them, as well as we facilitate technology expertise sharing and technology evaluations at GoMentum.
Great. So Atul, I have time for just a couple more questions, and then we'll take a couple of questions from the audience.
Sure.
Can you give us some insight then as to where you believe AV companies should be focusing as they continue to develop and test, and why?
That's right. So that's an important question, and you've heard me talk about safety, and two key things that I think a lot of the AV companies need to be focusing on, as well as we know that they are focusing on, is one is around safety. So automation technologies are here. They have a large potential to save lives in collisions and in traffic and transportation safety. But the important thing to remember is that AV companies have to earn the trust of the public, right? And earning the trust of the public is really a matter of good behavior, shown over a period of time. So really understanding safety and performing safety evaluations is going to be big. It already is big, but really there is a large focus on developing safety cases, full-fledged safety cases, and that is where the evaluation of vehicle technologies is important in public, proving grounds where there is no risk to the public. So safety evaluation is going to be big. The second aspect is, of course, regulations. There are, as I mentioned, the regulations are coming both nationally as well as internationally. And the important thing to remember is that these regulations are largely designed to engender trust in automation. So it's going to become more and more important for AV companies to show that they conform to various test protocols as they are being developed. The important thing to remember is that both safety as well as regulations are important, and we help in some ways in both evaluation as well as in developing new test protocols and in understanding where these technologies are today, as well as what the limitations are for these technologies.
Great. And so Atul, I have one final question. What are some of the common misconceptions the public may have about AV tech, and how can we change those perceptions?
That's a good question, Pamela. And so the first thing that comes to my mind is that, well, most of us today have heard of the disengagements reports that have come out from various AV companies. Now, the thing is that these disengagement reports are interesting, but really that is just one metric that is being looked at. Honestly, there are various other dozens of metrics that are really more important for safety evaluation. And we know this because we already contribute to various different kinds of safety metrics that are being worked on, some from SAE, some from UL. And these metrics help evaluate the operational safety of these highly automated vehicles. Some of these metrics include, let me just mention some of these standards. These are J3237 that is coming on operational safety of automation technologies. Of course, UL 4600, as I mentioned, right? So disengagement is just one metric. It's the one that most people know because that's one that is being asked for by regulatory agencies. But there are at least several dozens that are being worked on, and these are being adopted by the industry. So that's one. The second myth is that automation technologies, right, as good as they are and as good as they will get to, there is always going to be some sort of a residual risk with automation. And we have to remember that because we don't know honestly what the unknown unknowns are. And as part of that, evaluation of automation technologies is really important. We play our part in helping evaluate these technologies in our proving ground. But really, the key point here is that companies need to earn the trust of public, and they have to figure out how to evaluate these technologies. We help do that. And automation technologies are going to be deployed fairly soon, but it's also important to remember that there is going to be some residual risk, but it's also important for us to understand what these risks are. So we are here to help evaluate what these risks are.
Great, so thanks, Atul. We have just a few minutes left. I'm going to get to a couple of questions from our audience. So the first one is asking about GoMentum. Do you have the ability to simulate rain or other adverse weather conditions?
So that's a good question, Pamela. We don't have rain machines as such, but we do get some inclement weather every now and then. Early in the mornings at GoMentum, there is typically in the winter there is dense fog. So we have evaluated vehicles in these conditions, as well as we now have the ability to perform tests late in the night in complete darkness, and we have actually performed various pedestrian safety evaluations at night, and those are always interesting because these are conditions where there is literally no visibility. So these are interesting situations, and as I mentioned, right, we have performed these testing in I would say not about inclement weather, but situations that are close to a real world.
And so I have another question about how many people are on the GoMentum team and what types of roles do they play?
Sure. So we have about a dozen or so in our team. The roles vary depending on the need of the hour. In some case, of course, we have our business development. To some extent, all of us do work in the business development capacity. But we have test engineers, field technicians who work very closely with the AV companies and the vehicle companies on evaluating their vehicles. We have on-site support, field engineering support, who work with the AV companies, as well as we have analysts who help analyze the results of these tests. So net with our team, as small as it is, we help answer the questions that are most important for our partners on both performing their structured scenarios as well as analyzing the results of their tests.
Great. So I have a question asking pretty specific. Has GoMentum evaluated the impact of car color on vehicle detection?
That's an interesting question. I can't answer specifically regarding car color, but I can tell you that we have, as I was mentioning, we have evaluated various different vehicles, different kinds of vehicles, both starting from small kinds, very small vehicles to fairly large. And we have evaluated them in various different testing features. So both across straightaways as well as around turns and intersections. And without giving away in a confidential details here, I can mention that many of these vehicles do perform excellently, while many of these vehicles need further evaluation. And that really is that really underscores the importance for testing in a proving ground, because if the vehicle has to fail at all, we would much rather have the vehicle fail at a proving ground rather than at a public road, because there is no public risk in the proving grounds. So that is essentially what we try to elicit from the vehicle as we go about testing these vehicles.
Great. And so one final question, Atul, what are the biggest challenges you have with running a facility like this?
So that's an interesting question, and honestly the biggest challenges are that the facility is quite large. It's around 2,000 acres, and we have 8 different testing zones. So the good thing is that over the course of last year or so, we have had a tremendous amount of interest from customers who might traditionally have gone out of state for their testing, but now they instead choose to come to GoMentum. So that is in some ways a good problem to have. We have been very busy on the site, but that has meant that we have also needed to have various people on site to ensure that customers test their vehicles safely and securely away from the prying eyes, and to a great degree we have done that. But it's always interesting because we see sometimes ourselves stretched too thin, but that's a problem I'm happy to have.
Great. Great. So thanks so much for joining us this morning, Atul. We are unfortunately out of time. And if we didn't get to your question, that's not a problem because you have our contact information right there on your screen. So you can feel free to reach out to either of us directly with questions about GoMentum Station and AV testing, or Velodyne Lidar and our LiDAR sensors and software. Again, this webinar recording will be available to view on Velodyne Lidar's YouTube channel. So I want to thank Atul Acharya for joining us. Thanks again, Atul. And I do want to mention a couple of final items before we sign off. The first of those is the V2X lab at GoMentum Station, which Atul mentioned early on. We didn't really have time to get into that too deeply today, but V2X technology enables vehicles to communicate to their surroundings, including traffic signals, other vehicles, and infrastructure. And I definitely encourage you to check out the V2X lab online at GoMentumStation.net. And you may have also noticed that earlier we chatted out some links about Velodyne's PAEB testing, and we'll also include those links under the recording of this webinar when we upload to our YouTube channel. So definitely check out Velodyne's PAEB video and white paper at velodynelidar.com. And I want to thank our audience today for watching. And if you're interested in learning more about the latest developments and applications in the mobility industry, please be sure to join us on Friday, May 21st, when we'll be talking to Edward Shelton, VP of Business Development at Thor Drive, and Brian Cobb, Chief Innovation Officer at Cincinnati Northern Kentucky International Airport. We hope to see you next time. Thanks for spending your morning with us.
Thank you for reminding me, Pamela.
Thanks.